So I did a video on Empulse, a first-person shooter from the same developers of Splitgate. It actually releases today. And in that video of the beta, I did a lot of comparison to Titanfall 2 because Empulse kind of bills itself as a spiritual successor to the Titanfall franchise, because we are not getting a Titanfall 3 anytime soon, I don't believe. So what they've done is they've basically created a first-person wall-running game with momentum-based movement, grapple hooks, and mechs. And basically it is a 6v6 shooter, and you just have little jetpacks and you fly around and you use your momentum and movement to kill other players and play the modes. Pretty cool. It was fun. Now, I don't know about the full release, but in that beta, I had a few criticisms of Empulse in comparison to Titanfall. Most of that had to do with mechanics, but also some of it had to do with art direction and the style. And I did want to make sure that it wasn't just nostalgia that was making me think so highly and fondly of Titanfall 2, so I went and played Titanfall 2. And it turns out that nostalgia was not misleading me, because Titanfall 2 is the GOAT. It is that game. It is really good. Even still today, it holds up very well if you can find a game in the multiplayer. There's still, when I played, about 3,000 people on Steam on PC who were playing it, and I was able to get into a few multiplayer games. That's what you're going to be seeing in the background. I played the game and I had a wonderful time playing it. So I'm going to give some comparisons now that I have both games in my mind and talk about Empulse and some of the things that it does that could be better, because it is supposed to be a spiritual successor to Titanfall, but it is not going to be a one-to-one comparison. And that's probably by design, because just like with Splitgate, it was also a spiritual successor to the Halo series of trying to have that style of gunplay mixed in with the portals and all that stuff. Empulse is doing the same thing, but with Titanfall and putting its own little spin on things. So one of the biggest differences here is actually the jetpack system. Empulse has a jetpack system, whereas Titanfall had basically a double jump system. That's really what it was. In Titanfall, you could do big double jumps to chain, wall running to different things, whereas in Empulse, you literally just have a jetpack, but you also do have wall running and all that stuff. But the jetpack really does allow you to kind of just fly around the map if you have enough momentum. One of the big criticisms I had of Empulse was that, in my opinion, the wall running and some of the movement didn't feel as smooth as Titanfall 2. Some of that, I think, has to do with the way that the pilots in Titanfall 2 were able to sort of move, and they almost immediately changed their angle of running depending on how close you were to a wall. If you were within a certain distance from a wall, they almost immediately changed their stance. It was like in anticipation of the wall being there, and it just flows incredibly well. So for me, the wall running in Titanfall 2 was just a smoother experience. You don't have the speed boost stuff like the grenades like you do in Empulse, I don't believe, but the speed that you can get while running in Titanfall 2 is actually really fast if you're good at it. The other thing was the grapple hook. I said that I felt that Empulse's grapple hook was also not as smooth as Titanfall's. Now, it took a minute to get used to it, but I also said it wasn't as smooth as what I felt was the one that was even in the finals. I think part of that came down to the grapple hook range, because I found that in Titanfall 2, the range of your grapple hook was actually pretty far. And it also came down to the speed of the grapple hook. Now, here's the thing. I believe there's actually a perk in Empulse that you can unlock that increases both of those things for your grapple hook in that game. But in my opinion, I shouldn't have to work my way up to a perk in order to make something feel good from the ground level, because it means I have to suffer through using it in an unoptimal state before I can make it maybe slightly better. It was just a little clunky for my liking. The other thing that I criticized Empulse for was the mechs. In my opinion, the mechs in Empulse are also not nearly as smooth or really as interesting as Titanfall 2. You have to understand, I am criticizing the game based on the beta, not the final release. Things might change, so I hope they do, and that's okay. But I thought that the mechs were okay, but I didn't think that they were very interesting. The movement in the mechs felt a little restricted. Some of the maps really did not feel like they were built for the mechs. The jumping mechanic for the mechs I did not think was very good, and also because not everyone gets a mech, they've basically made it to where there are no real mech destroying weapons. You kind of just use your basic weapon to shoot the mechs and destroy them. That's kind of it. And I don't know if that's really all that interesting, honestly. Whereas in Titanfall, the mechs are basically what they need to be. Very strong. They're able to fight each other. They also are a little more interesting in that there are different types of mechs that use different types of weapons and different builds and loadouts for your mech and things like that, which I thought were really fun. But also just that the mechs in those games basically just ignored pretty much most terrain and were able to just very smoothly go over a terrain and walk all over the place, and the maps felt pretty good and like built around the mechs as well, which makes them feel a lot smoother in my opinion. Once again, this might change on the launch today. We'll see. I will go and still give it a try. I'm very interested in it anyway. There's also the matter of aiming. In Empulse, the aiming is basically hip fire for the entire game, and then if you want to like sort of ADS or group your shots tighter, you can right click. You don't ADS, but you do kind of do like a zoomed in hip fire, and I found that to be okay. Titanfall obviously has first person ADS, very Call of Duty Battlefield like. It works for the most part, although in my opinion the majority of the sights in that game are way too zoomed in, or they're too close to the screen, and I'm not a big fan of that. I've never really been a big fan of that. I wish they were out a little bit farther in front of my character, but that's just me personally. The last thing I would say is that in comparison to the art style and just the overall vibes of Empulse versus Titanfall, for me, in my opinion, the art style for Empulse is very forgettable. It is not very interesting, and while I think some of it's okay, it's just like kind of whatever. I didn't think the mech design was very memorable. I didn't think that it called in a very interesting way, like the whole materialization thing was not very interesting to me. Whereas in Titanfall 2, I mean, the vibe is just there. It's awesome. It has like a certain level of aura to it and just badassery that it's hard to replicate that. And there's a lot to it that I just think looks freaking cool, man. The way that the mechs come down from orbit, they slam into the ground. The audio is great with that. And if you have like some heavy metal playing in the background and you get like the mech slams into the ground at the same time, there's like a breakdown. There is like a dopamine rush there that is insane. The mechs are all different and cool looking. They have different like, you know, executions and flares. That stuff is so cool to me, and it works so well, and it holds up really well too. So what I'll say is this: in terms of the beta for Empulse, it is a spiritual successor to Titanfall in the sense that it does many of the same things, even if it doesn't do them as well as Titanfall 2 did. Is the game fun and good? Yeah, it is fun. I had a really good time playing the game, and I'm gonna give it another go here soon. But is it on the same level of Titanfall? In my opinion, no. And I don't even know if anything ever really will be on the same level as Titanfall. It just did what it did so freaking well. And I'd like to say that's just nostalgia talking to me, but after having played a few hours of multiplayer the other day, it's not nostalgia. It still holds up. It's really good, and the campaign is still really good too. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I will be giving Empulse another try, and if you want to see more content on that, let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you guys next time. I've been BubbaTV24, and I am signing out.